Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. After 5 weeks of the NFL season, it looks as though we're finally starting to get some of the high-scoring games we thought we'd have more of with this year's rule changes. In fact, in half of last week's games, the winning team scored more than 30 points. Why do you think all of a sudden, Tom, there's more scoring?
Gosh, Pat, maybe the defenses that we talked about last week. I think that the big scores are still a result of turnovers, that the defense gives that offense the ball and then they go in from like the 25 or 30.
I think if you break it down, that's probably true because the defenses are tougher than ever, I think.
Well, they are. Now look at the scores. St. Louis got 31, Denver got 33, Pittsburgh got 34, Cincinnati 34.
And the Vikings got 51.
That's right, and Philadelphia got 35 against the Giants.
But it's still the defense doing it.
I think so. When the Washington Redskins last met the Miami Dolphins, they lost the game and the World Championship in Super Bowl VII. Last Sunday, it was time for a rematch, and armed with a change at quarterback, the Redskins were set for revenge.
Washington summoned their version of the cavalry early against Miami as number 9, Sonny Jurgensen, drew his first starting assignment of the season. Famous for a cool head and a buggy whip release, the 40-year-old master cracked out medium gainers through the Dolphin zones early. But during the first half, while Sonny would exceed the century mark in passing, the Miami defense remained resolute, refusing to allow the Redskins a single point and 3 times forcing Jurgensen to throw interceptions. Number 25, Tim Foley, shut off Washington's most promising drive of the first half with a key end zone theft. However, within the opening 30 minutes, the Dolphins could manage but one score, which came on a short pop by number 33, Hubert Ginn, for a halftime lead of 7-0. The Redskin defense set the tenor of the second half. Both clubs managed only a field goal amid the third quarter struggle before a Sonny Jurgensen missile sounded the beginning to a furious finish. Jurgensen's guided projectile homed in on Roy Jefferson for a touchdown and, coupled with a field goal, forced Bob Greasy and the Dolphins to overcome a 13-10 lead. Greasy responded with a 48-yarder to number 89, Nat Moore, but from the Redskin 13-yard line, faced a crucial 3rd and 11 within the final 2 minutes. Howard Twilley's catch brought the Dolphins the lead, 17-13. And with barely a minute remaining, George Allen was afire with comeback fever, a fever fueled on by the searing darts from his ace, Sonny Jurgensen. With less than 20 seconds remaining and no more timeouts, Sonny had one last chance. Number 38, Larry Smith, barely crossed the imaginary plane of the end zone to complete a 2017 Washington victory. The win was but further evidence of the sheer greatness of a healthy Christian Adolph Sonny Jurgensen, which, when added to a solid team effort, helped to keep the Redskins within striking distance of the streaking St. Louis Cardinals.
In Philadelphia last week, both the Giants and the Eagles groped for the key that would open up their offenses, Pat.
The New York Giants' meager offense has not produced more than 2 touchdowns in any game, while Roman Gabriel of the Eagles was still looking for his first touchdown pass of 1974.
While offensive problems still clouded a potentially bright future, Mike McCormick was secure in the knowledge that his defense, led by Bill Bergey, would be enough to punch out the floundering Giants. Unfortunately, Bergey's presence failed to stir the listless mean green attack, and in the first quarter, Gabriel and the Eagles came out flat. For 15 minutes, the quarterback, who owned all the vital statistics in 1973, was a tasty morsel devoured by the aroused Giants. Roman was intercepted twice, and New York took a 7-0 lead on a trampoline touchdown by Leon X-Ray McQuay. After a quarter of slumber, the Mean Green arose and flowed into the pocket of first-time starting quarterback Jim Delgazo. Gabe took the cue from his defense and began shredding New York with checkoff passes to his setbacks. Setback Tommy Sullivan, number 25, caught 3 passes, rushed for 80 yards, and scored 3 short touchdowns against the Giants. The lusty hitting Eagles caused 5 Giant turnovers and spurred victory number 4 for Philadelphia. Roman's first touchdown pass resulted from a pretty running fake by Poe James, number 27, which cleared traffic for a slanting Don Zimmerman. After 17 quarters of futility, the Fire High gang had produced their first score, and Roman Gabriel was firmly in command of the Eagles' Super Bowl Express. Gabriel capped the Eagles' scoring with a Fire High lob to the almost unstoppable skyscraper, 6'8" Harold Carmichael. The Eagles bombed the Giants 35-7, and with their offense alive, it boded well for a team that has allowed just 41 points in 5 games.
Before last week's game, the St. Louis Cardinals were off to their best start in 8 years, while the Dallas Cowboys had lost 3 straight for the first time in 10 years. But the Cowboys had beaten the Cardinals 6 straight times, including twice last season, by the combined score of 75-13.
This year, Don Coyle's Cardinals have been winning with the big play. Last week, the game's first big play went the other way, and it was about as big as the field will allow. An NFL record-tying 98-yard punt return by Dennis Morgan, a rookie burner from Western Illinois. Dennis Morgan's big play gave Dallas the early lead, but with time running out in the first quarter, St. Louis pulled off another of the year's biggest plays. First, Mel Gray, the Cardinals' little big play receiver, limped to the sidelines and was replaced by his backup Gary Hammond, a third-year wide receiver, but a former college quarterback at SMU. Then, Jim Hart threw a lateral to Hammond, number 30, who threw downfield to a somewhat open Jackie Smith. "83 yards later, Cliff Harris saved a touchdown, but only temporarily. And then in the Cardinals' next series, Jim Hart hit another big play, this time for 80 yards to, you guessed it, the miraculously recovered Mel Gray. On the next series, Roger Staubach tied the game at 14 with a touchdown pass to Gene Fugit, the third-year tight end from Amherst. The fantastic first-half fireworks display was not over yet. With just 18 seconds left in the first half, Jim Hart found old reliable Jackie Smith, the 12-year tight end who's still a Bull, with the artist's touch. At the half, it was Dallas 14, surprising St. Louis 21. On the Cardinals' first possession of the third quarter, St. Louis mounted the lead to 28-14. This time the honors went to the Cardinals' other little big man, Terry Metcalf, number 21. Roger Staubach fought back. Behind flawless protection, 8 times he hit league leading receiver Drew Pearson, number 88. For the season, Pearson already has 30 catches for more than 500 yards. Then with less than 4 minutes to play in the game, Staubach finally tied it 28-28. The whole game, Dallas had kicked off short to avoid Terry Metcalf. But this one time, Efrain Herrera let it all hang out. Terry Metcalf's return carried 56 yards to the Dallas 34. And then with a minute to go, Jim Bakken decided an otherwise even contest of big plays with the game's only field goal. For Dallas, a 4th consecutive loss, 3 of them on last-ditch field goals. But for Cinderella St. Louis, a spotless 5 straight, wild, wacky, wonderful wins.
Before the season, Noam Van Brocklin figured his Falcons would have to win at least 5 of their first 6 games before Atlanta faced what he called the meat of their schedule, Tom.
Well, Pat, as the weeks unfold, there are very few soft touches, and after a woeful start, when Atlanta may have been looking ahead a bit, they seem to have found at least the passing gear.
In Atlanta, Bear tackle Jim Osborne pointed a finger, then planted an uppercut on All-Pro George Coons. The rowdy Bears were at it again as they plundered the Falcons from sideline to sideline. Taking their cue from the big bad Bears, the Atlanta defense, led by tackle Mike Lewis, number 69, manhandled Chicago setbacks and tracked down quarterback Gary Huff relentlessly. Five times the Falcons sacked Huff, and 3 times the culprit was defensive end John Zook, number 71. The Bears found the end zone only once in the first half on a Huff to Jim Kelly connection, but that apparent score was voided by a Chicago penalty. Atlanta's only offensive thrust came on a punt return by Al Dodd. Although they sputtered often, Atlanta led Chicago 10-0 after 3 quarters. But on the 4th play of the final period, Huff launched a 59-yard rainbow to Bo Rather. Rather's touchdown and a field goal tied the game at 10. And with 32 seconds remaining, quarterback Bob Lee rifled a 21-yard dart to Lewis Neal. With 17 seconds to play, Lee coolly found Ken Burrow with a 21-yard sideline pass that stopped the clock. Seconds remain. From his 21, Nick Mickemeier's 31-yard field goal was true as the stunning 13-10 victory was the Falcons' 2nd in a row.
Last week, the Los Angeles Rams took a trip to Milwaukee's County Stadium to rendezvous with the Green Bay Packers in a rain-drenched game that would dissolve a great deal of the luster from the Rams' supposedly championship sheen.
It would be an ill-remembered day for LA's blue and gold, but for Green Bay Packer backers, last Sunday's stunning triumph was ample compensation for an afternoon of rain-splashed spectating. But the rain had an altogether different impact on John Hadel's passing game, as he could produce but 59 yards and 1 field goal against the elements and the Packers. With Hadel seemingly off form, number 12, James Harris, entered the game with something less than elegant form. But he still found number 19, Lance Rensel, over the middle for 25 yards. But facing 3rd and 6 at the Green Bay 11, Harris' next slip was much more costly. Although ruled an incomplete pass, the Rams settled for a field goal, which gave them just 6 points for the afternoon. With a combination of steady coverage and inspired rush, the Packers continually snuffed out the Rams' offensive flame. In the second quarter, the Rams, hoping to punt out of danger at their own 22, kicked the ball to number 22, John Staggers. And 68 yards later, it was 7-3 Green Bay. But just as the defense had done the blocking on Staggers' run, so too do they deserve the credit for setting off the rest of Green Bay's points. As in the third period, when number 28, Willie Buchanan's interception soon made it 10-3 Packers. But the brightest light on the defense came from number 56, Ted Hendricks, who 3 times snared errant LA passes, the last of which set up Green Bay's final touchdown. With the score standing at 10-6, the Packers had the ball at the LA 19, thanks to Mr. Hendricks. And then John Brockington started to do his thing. From the 5, it was number 42 into the Los Angeles end zone to give the Packers a confidence-boosting 17-6 win over the maybe-not-so-hot Los Angeles Rams.
Well, up until last week, Pat, the Houston Oilers had given everyone they played a run for their money. In fact, the biggest margin of loss was only 13 points.
But last week, Tom, Houston ventured intrepidly north to meet the undefeated Vikings, and unfortunately for them, the Purple Gang had little respect for the Oilers' improved statistics.
Last week, at least one Viking was anxious to get the game with Houston underway in a hurry, and that's exactly what the Minnesotans did. On the second play from scrimmage, Fran Tarkington drifted to his right and uncorked a champagne flight 80 yards to wide receiver John Gilliam. Another look at the same play reveals that not only did Gilliam have his man beat, but the defender also fell down, probably from a sense of shock and futility. And so the aerial onslaught took wing, with Tarkington firing to his receivers and running backs at will. Number 82, Jim Lash, accounted for 1 drive-sustaining gain. The second time the Vikes had the ball, they added a field goal. And the third time, Fran eased out for a cool running pass to tight end Stu Voigt, also known as Mr. Lonely. When Francis became bored with passing, he switched to the running of number 44, Chuck Foreman, who packs a punch almost as devastatingly effective as the other Foreman called George. Once again, Houston was caught on the Purple Peril Thruway. as Chuck drove in from the 6th following an Ed Marinero 1-yarder. Although the offense starred on this day, the defense kept their hand in by keeping their hands and bodies on Houston quarterback Dante Pastorini all afternoon. And like his Inferno, Dante got hot. As they so often do, the Vikings special team added a play of amazing complexity, but one they probably practice only occasionally. Although this particular dazzler was called back, Minnesota was undaunted and struck again soon on a Tarkington to Foreman 24-yarder. In a humanitarian gesture, Fran was lifted for number 17, Bob Berry, who had not a spark of sympathy for the distraught Oilers as he hit third-string tight end Steve Craig for 1 score and then tacked on a 20-yarder to wide receiver Sam McCullum. When it was over, the Houston Oilers found themselves trampled beneath the pounding feet of the Purple Parade. Final score 51-10. Last Sunday, the New Orleans Saints showed up in Denver with intentions of bringing home their first road victory in 18 games, Pat.
That's certainly enough to make anybody homesick, Tom. But with Charlie Johnson injured and Steve Ramsey replacing him at quarterback, the Broncos were supposed to be considerably below full strength.
If suspicion of number 10 Steve Ramsey's ability was present before the game, his first drive was definitely a well-executed rebuttal as he drove the Broncos downfield with precision passing. By the time number 80 wide receiver Jerry Simmons was pushed out of bounds on this pitch from Ramsey, the Broncos were at the New Orleans 38-yard line. From there, Ramsey, giving the Broncos a new wrinkle with more maneuverability at quarterback, rolled out and pinpointed number 25 Haven Moses for his 6th completion in 6 attempts. At the New Orleans doorstep, Ramsey prudently handed off to number 24 Otis Armstrong, who won a foot race to the flag and put Denver up 7-0. New Orleans came back with a field goal, however, and when Ramsey started the next drive, he never took his eyes off his target, and his pass was doomed. Number 40, Terry Schmidt, took it on in. It was not the last contribution by the New Orleans defense, however, because in the 3rd period, Ramsey was victimized again. This time, number 37, safety Tom Myers made off like a bandit to the Denver 1, where his effort yielded 7 additional Saints points. But unfortunately for the Saints, such acts of brilliance were merely isolated occurrences, as was this 58-yard hookup to number 88 Joel Parker, which put New Orleans on the Denver 22. Typically, when threatened, the Broncos resorted to what they do best, and that means tighten your chin straps to the opposition. Following his first interception, Ramsey showed a lot of confidence as he returned to the airways to find Haven Moses open and instinctively knowing which way to run with the ball. At the New Orleans 25-yard line, Ramsey performed his interpretation of the bootleg, then flipped a pass to number 44 Floyd Little, whose some yardage had Denver in business at the 6-yard line. From there, Ramsey rolled right and lofted an easy 6-pointer to an unattended number 88 tight end Riley Odoms. On the next series, number 8, Archie Manning, in attempting to keep pace with the Denver point production, let loose a pass that quickly had him racing to cut Denver safety Bill Thompson off with his 6-point interception. But Thompson wasn't to be denied, and suddenly the Broncos had 20 points on the board. Number 10, Steve Ramsey, was to be heard from again as he returned to number 25, Haven Moses, whose savvy runs amassed him 132 yards for the day. Once in close, Ramsey went back to number 24, Otis Armstrong, who slid off one good hit to score and give the Mile High boys a 26-10 lead. It was obviously a day of good and bad for Steve Ramsey, but his best was this 43-yard connection to Billy Van Heusen, who ran it in to complete a 33-17 defeat of the obviously road-weary New Orleans Saints.
So far this year, the supposedly docile San Diego Chargers have come on like man-eaters, Tom. Despite 4 losses in 5 games, they've never lost by more than 7 points.
That's right, Pat. They've given both the Dolphins and the Eagles a big scare, and they devoured the Bengals in a huge upset. Then last week, it was the Raiders who almost got struck by lightning.
Last week in San Diego, both the Raiders and Chargers were scotch when it came to giving up points. The reason was the defense ruled the day with an iron hand that often came down hard. The first time the Raiders were close to a score, they were short-circuited by number 44, Chris Fletcher, who made a nice return before being stopped by number 25, Fred Biletnikoff, on his first consecutive tackle, perhaps ever. And then the flashy running of number 33, Don Woods, who averaged 7 yards per carry and gained 118 yards, got San Diego a field goal and a 3-point lead. But Kenny Stabler came right back on a pass to speedster Cliff Branch that was good for 46 yards and a 7-3 halftime lead for the Silver and Black. In the third period, Dan Fouts stepped back and drilled Oakland's great cornerback number 24, Willie Brown, who zipped in to seemingly bust the game open. Unfortunately for the Raiders, the score was disallowed because of a penalty. Having flirted with disaster in the air, Fouts returned to rookie reliable Don Woods, who was often racing to a score, until who should appear but number 26, Skip Thomas. And no one eludes the clutches of the sinister specter known as Dr. Death. But the long gainer helped, and soon Woods glided in from 7 yards out for a 10-7 Charger lead, and an upset in the making. But while a wind-blown and worried John Madden shouted encouragement, the Raiders pulled it out, as they so often do, on a last quarter strike from the snake to tight end Bob Moore. And in a close one, Raiders 14, Chargers 10.
For several seasons now, the Kansas City Chiefs have been plagued by a sputtering offense, an offense whose only real consistency seems to be in its failure to score enough points.
It wasn't expected to be much of a tussle for the Steel Gang defenders as Pittsburgh invaded Arrowhead Stadium last Sunday to battle the Chiefs. And aside from some sporadic passing by number 10, Mike Livingston, the struggle that wasn't expected never showed. Livingston fired completions to a variety of receivers like Old Pro Otis Taylor, number 89, and newcomer Barry Pearson, number 85. Livingston totaled almost 250 yards passing while throwing a third touchdown pass, this time to Elmo Wright. But the big story of the game was Livingston's ability to spot wide-open Pittsburgh defenders and then hit them dead in the hand. In fact, Livingston fired 5 interceptions into the eager arms of the Steelers, the most spectacular of which came when Glenn Edwards stole one for a 49-yard touchdown. The Chiefs then let their old pro, Lenny Dawson, take his turn at throwing an interception, after which followed the passing debut of the Kansas City hope of the future, rookie David James, number 12. Number 59, Jack Ham, welcomed the rookie into the NFL with an interception that was the Steelers' 7th of the game. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh offense moved under the guidance of number 17, Joe Gilliam. Gilliam's passing helped set up short scores by Rocky Blyer and number 26, Preston Pearson. His only scoring pass came on a deep post pattern to a wide-open Frank Lewis, number 43. When it was all over, Pittsburgh finally claimed a 34-24 win.
The rivalry between the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals used to be a close one. In the first 6 games between the two, Pat, all but one was decided by 3 or 4 points.
Those days look like they're over, Tom. The Bengals took the season's opener 33-7. Last week, they romped 34-24. And for Paul Brown, it couldn't have happened in a better place, Cleveland Stadium.
The Cleveland Browns are a team that just can't get it together, mostly due to a non-existent passing attack. With last year's starters Frank Pitts and Fair Hooker traded and talented Steve Holden injured, Mike Phipps is throwing to strangers and they're just not catching the ball. Last week against the Bengals, Cleveland passed for the meager sum of 87 net yards. As is their tradition, however, one thing they have been able to do is run the ball. With Leroy Kelly gone and Bo Scott infirm, number 34 Greg Pruitt has become the chief source of excitement. The Browns also may have found the big fullback they've been seeking in number 37, bruising Hugh McInnes. With Pruitt, McInnes, and steady number 30 Kenny Brown sharing the backfield, Cleveland rolled up nearly 300 yards on the ground and averaged 8 yards a carry. If their air attack had done only half as well, the Browns might have had a chance against Cincinnati. As it was, their longest pass was thrown by versatile Pruitt. It went to journeyman receiver number 42 Richardson for a 60-yard touchdown, the second the two have teamed up for this year. Cincinnati had no such problems through the air, and this man is the reason. Quarterback Ken Anderson doesn't get much publicity, but he's a winner. Last Sunday, Anderson's pinpoint passing pierced the Browns secondary for 263 yards. Anderson scored 1 touchdown and threw for 3 more, as the Bengals were never headed. Cincinnati's touchdown passes were scored by Charlie Joyner on a 65-yard play, and number 36 Linville Elliott from the flat. the man who really burns the Browns is Isaac Curtis. He had one early score recalled, but came back to use his height against All-Pro Clarence Scott for a touchdown that counted, as the Bengals offense rolled on and on. The crushing 34-24 win kept Cincinnati in first place in the AFC Central and was their second straight runaway against their arch rivals, the Browns. But for Coach Paul Brown, this game had a special satisfaction, for it was his team's first win ever in Cleveland Stadium, his old stomping grounds.
Last week, the floundering Baltimore Colts were up against the ever-improving Buffalo Bills. And despite the fact that the Colts were in their own corral, there was no way they could put a halter on their 5-game losing skid.
Yes, there are ways to stop O.J. Simpson, although some may seem drastic. But for a man like Colt head coach Joe Thomas, it was a case where a coach in search of his first victory will stop at nothing. Last week, though, Colt quarterback Burt Jones got real close to the stadium soil often enough to earn a degree in agriculture. On the other hand, his counterpart Joe Ferguson was having some problems of his own. Eventually, Mr. Jones pulled off a successful and well-executed bootleg to give the Colts a short-lived 7-3 lead. And the Colts, who hadn't had much of a ration of touchdowns, mixed in with their feed this year, reacted accordingly. And for the briefest of whiles last week, it looked like Baltimore was victory bound when number 25 Ray Oldham intercepted and made a nice lateral return, which set off another round of premature celebration. But then the Bills got down to business as number 42 Neil Craig intercepted and outraced a bevy of pursuers for a 55-yard 10-7 Buffalo lead. And oh, how the emotion took wing and flowed all day. And emotion wasn't the only thing, because howitzers notwithstanding, the juice was flowing too. O.J.'s day totaled 127 yards. But the clincher came on a Joe Ferguson bomb and spectacular catch by number 40 J.D. Hill. They'll be talking about that one in Buffalo for quite a while. Baltimore's Lydell Mitchell, number 26, added one more tally to the Colts side, but it wasn't enough to tip the score in their favor as Baltimore went down to defeat for the 5th time this season, 27-14.
Last week, the New York Jets finally got to play one in New York, Tom, after 10 straight games on the road.
I bet they're sorry about that. In that one, there was also another streak of 10 on the line, Pat, because it had been 10 years since the visiting New England Patriots had won a game at Shea Stadium.
Joe Namath's record against the good teams has not been very impressive the last few years, but one team he has beaten regularly is the New England Patriots. In fact, his lifetime record against the Patriots was 12-1-1. But that was before the impotent Patsies became the powerful party poopers who were to ruin the Jets' homecoming party last weekend. On New England's first play from scrimmage, Jim Plunkett went right to the air. Darrell Stingley hung on to help set up the game's first score, which came on a sweep by fullback Sam Cunningham, number 39. For the rest of the day, Jim Plunkett kept the Jets off balance with Sam's bams, short passes, and an occasional change of pace by Mac Heron, the 5-foot 5-inch human gyroscope. While Mac Heron has been getting most of the ink, his backfield mate Sam Cunningham at 6'3" and 224 pounds has been the perfect complement to Mini Mac. He has the fingertip touch for the outside play, or the goal line slam bang style that earned him his nickname, Sam Bam Cunningham. When the Patriots got close, they scored. The only time the Jets got close, the Patriots took the ball away. Joe Namath could complete only 7 of 21 for 63 yards with 2 interceptions, and he spent much of the afternoon biting the dust in the Shea Stadium infield. As Joe Namath said after the game, it's no fluke that the Patriots are 5-0. Number 18, Al Woodall, finished the game in relief of Namath. Woodall fared no better, with only 1 completion and 2 more interceptions, one of which became a New England touchdown. The final score was 24-0, which meant that the Patriots were still the only undefeated team in the conference, and that the Jets had been shut out at home for the first time in their 15-year history. It's been a long time since Patriot fans have had so much to get excited about.
Well, it's prediction time, and I've just got a slight margin on you, 10-9 to 9-10.
Well, I guess it's a little early for me to be starting to panic.
All right, well, let's panic on this one. How about
Okay.
New England against Buffalo, huh?
Gosh, I don't know. The Patriots have been so impressive. I got to go with New England, if you'll let me have that choice.
All right, I'll go with O.J. Simpson and Buffalo to upset it.
Okay, Philadelphia, Dallas.
Boy, the Cowboys cannot continue to lose. They're still a great football team. I'm going to have to go with the Eagles.
I thought you might. I'll take Dallas in. I don't mind.
Okay.
San Francisco and Los Angeles.
Ooh, the battle on the West Coast. The Rams have to bounce back. I'll go with Los Angeles.
I sort of like the Rams, too. Chuck Knox is not one who would sit by and see a passive offense like they had last week.
That's true.
Cincinnati at Oakland.
This could be the toughest of them all to pick or play. The Oakland Raiders, I still think, will end up in the Super Bowl, and I think Stabler's still healthy enough. I'll go with Oakland.
I know how you feel about Oakland. I like Cincinnati. Monday night, it's Green Bay at Chicago.
Anything can happen in that. One said that the score might be 3-2, but I think the Chicago Bears might upset Green Bay.
All right, I'll go with the Packers. At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens. I'm Pat Summerall.
And I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.